So, today we're discussing this. This is called the Black Phone Stories. This is my version. This is 20th Century Ghost by Joe Hill, but he republished it when the movie The Black Phone came out, starring Ethan Hawke. And so that's my copy, but it's the same book. So, this is a review of the book. We're not going to be talking about the Black Phone movie, and we're not going to be talking about the Black Phone story. I'm going to do that completely separately, because that deserves its own thing. Because they took a 20-page story and made it into a whole movie, and now they're making a second movie. So that's a whole thing. We're not doing that. Just doing this. This is full spoilers. Full everything. If you don't want spoilers, stop. Because I'm going to tell you everything that happens in all these stories because I'm mad. I don't approve of this book. No.
Even Black Phone?
Black Phone was okay.
That's why it needs another one?
That's why it needs another one. Black Phone was okay, but it needs its own because they made a movie out of it. I don't think they made a movie out of anything else in here.
Yeah.
And I honestly hope they didn't. Because it's not good and it gave me an ick about Joe Hill. So hi, this is Jenny. She's visiting me and she also likes books. And so I wanted to have her commentary on a book. She hasn't read any of these stories. So I'm going to tell her my thoughts and feelings. Then she's going to tell me her thoughts and feelings so I can have live commentary about how I feel.
Also a very different person because this is not my genre.
Yeah, she doesn't like horror at all.
Nope, it's like the only thing I stay away from.
So this is why I have to tell her about horror things. First of all, this isn't horror.
Well, it sure looks like
First
it.
things first, this isn't horror.
Well, it looks like it.
Girl.
Abraham?
No, it should be. No, it should be Abraham's Sons, or what's it called?
Boys.
Abraham's Boys. That one
Horror.
That one is a fucked up one. Now, here's the thing. It's fucked up, but it's not scary. That's my shit. It's like psychological, not horror. And I think Joe Hill is more known for horror. So, who is Joe Hill? We gotta get into that a little bit because this is his first published work as a book. He had individual like stories published before this, but this was first published as a book. And this was in like 2004 or 2006, somewhere in there, very early 2000s. And so this was the first thing he came out with. So I guess there's like a little leniency of like, this is your first. But there's not a leniency on the ick. And the ick is a sexual ick, just so y'all know.
But this is Bro's son.
But this is Stephen King's son. For those who don't know, Stephen King's son writes under a pseudonym so that he does not get directly associated with his father. So Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, and Joe Hill is not his real name. That's just the name he uses when he writes books. He's written, most famously, he's known for Horns, which is also a movie with Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh, Harry Potter.
Which is a good book. At least the last time when I read it in high school, it was good, and the movie was good.
I remember when you read it.
But now I need to rethink that. But, so he's known for Horns, he's known for Heart-Shaped Box, and he's known for the book with a license plate, NOS4A2. And I don't know if that's supposed to be Nosferatu.
Why did he stay in the same genre, though?
Right, what you know? I don't know. I don't know. And see, here's the thing. Before I read this, I had read Horns, and I had read part of Heart-Shaped Box. I read part of it because I lost the book halfway through. Like, I lost the physical book, and then I never bought another one.
Did you want to buy another one?
I want to know how it ends. But it wasn't nearly as good as Horns. Horns fucked me up. Worked my pussy out. I really did like Horns. But then I read this, and I'm like, he gave me an ick as a person. Not just his writing. Like, as a person, he gave me an ick for writing this. And so now I'm like, because I used to like him more than Stephen King, because I don't really like Stephen King anymore because I find his books boring now. Because they're all suspense and no horror and terrible endings.
Does he have, like, some sort of pattern now?
Stephen King?
Does he have, like, what's the word for it? Yes,
like, he follows the same formula? Yes, Stephen King does, for sure, right now.
Yeah, so it
for
gets kind of
sure.
old. That's why I do so many
and
genres.
It gets old. Let me tell you. I used to get really fucked up on Stephen King. Like, I read Carrie, I read The Shining, like, all that shit's good. Then you start reading other weird stuff by Stephen King. Like, I read Needful Things. That book is disappointing. And so then I found out about Joe Hill, and he had this book called Horns that has to do with the devil. And I was like, fuck me up. So I read it, and it was really good. And I was like, oh my God, I like this more. This is so much better than Stephen King. And so then I've had this on my shelf for a hot minute. And then the movie came out, watched the movie, loved the movie. So I was like, let me just read this whole collection. And this whole collection is like, I feel like when you read a short story collection, it's like you're reading a bunch of their books all at once, which makes me tired. I don't like short story collections, I've learned. I don't like them. They make me very tired. But then it's also like you can notice patterns because you have like 15 of his books all in one. And you're like, there's patterns and they aren't good. You're like, wow, you really talk about women like not well. Ick. So originally, as I said, it was published under the name 20th Century Ghost, which is the name of the second story in this book. But now it's being called The Black Phone Stories. Again, same book, just different cover, different title, rebranded for movie. Movie's good. I did like the movie. We're going to talk about that in a different one. So this book itself includes an introduction by a dude named Christopher Golden. And it's very fangirl explaining the author and talking about his favorite stories from the book. But it's not in like a, this is a masterpiece, whatever the fuck way, where you would like have like if someone had an introduction to like J.R.R. Tolkien or something. Or not, yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this is the guy.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's more so like fangirl. And this is not something you should be fangirling over. Like, they're okay. There are some that are okay. None of them are masterpieces, I will tell you that right now. None of them were like life-changing. So I really don't know what we're fangirling over. And then on that note, I put on that at the end of the book, on the page about the author, it says authors plural, which was really confusing because I saw that at the end and I was like, but I thought all of these were his stories. So then I'm like flipping through the book trying to figure out why the fuck it says authors plural. It's talking about the dude who wrote the introduction and calling him an author of the book. That's not the same. That's weird. That's fucking weird. If you wrote the introduction, you can get put as with an introduction by. You were not an author. That was so fucking weird. Like, you are not on the same level as the author of the book you wrote the introduction for. You're not. You're not.
That gives me James
This is their book.
Vibes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this collection is 15 short stories plus one hidden at the end. We'll get to that one. So it's technically 16. It seems to be advertised as like horror. It's not horror. It's unsettling. It's psychological. Or it's just like an average story. Nothing is scary. None of it's scary. So we're going to go through this chronologically. We're going to skip the black phone because that's going to be in another video. And I'm going to tell you what happens and how I feel about it. And we're going to also start pointing out patterns. And whether or not it should be horror, it should not be horror, like whatever. Overall, quickly, before I get into it, 2 stars. Maybe not like Joe Hill as an author and as a person. And there's enough stories where you start to notice plot patterns, and they aren't good. It's annoying. Okay. So story number 1 is called Best New Horror. So this one I would consider horror. Just barely, like just the tip of horror. So this one, start to take note of patterns, weird sexual inclusions. Now, I will say for just this one, I think the sexual inclusion makes sense. There's a sexual thing in the story. There's a story within a story, because basically the plot of this is that there is a horror author, which is a common thing between fucking Stephen King and his son. They always write about authors. And I guess it's like write what you know, but like write one thing about what you know. Yeah. Move on. But it's a horror.
It says Lovecraft.
Introduction.
Not introduction, no. Page 1 of it, I just looked at it and it says
oh,
Lovecraft.
Yeah. Because he's a horror author.
What?
He's talking about famous horror books in there. And he's a horror author turned publisher of horror. And he finds a perverted story called Button Boy, and it like reinvigorates his love of horror. And so he seeks out the original author of the story, who is this aloof guy who lives out in the woods with his brothers, and come to find out they're murderers. they're like actual murderers, which is, so he was writing about what he knew. And so the main character gets chased into the woods by these dudes because he like came to their land and found out they were actual murderers, and now they can't let him go. And so, but it ends with him running off into the woods, being chased by them, and him in his mind thinking that because of his horror background, he'll live. And then then it ends. That's the whole story.
What?
I'm completely serious. It's dumb. And so here's the thing. The story within the story, called Button Boy, is good. I like it. It's about a dude. Is it like, I think it's like Buttons for Eyes or something. It's like this girl gets kidnapped, and she kidnapped in a car, and she manages to make her way out, but it like haunts her what she saw in the car, and I think it was Button Boy is what she saw in the car. And so then like years later, she gets like picked up in a cab, and it's the same dude. And so now she is trapped, like she doesn't get away. And it's written very well, and I actually really like the story. I wish that this story was just Button Boy, because Button Boy was good.
But isn't that Coraline?
Yes, the button aspect.
Yeah.
But was this before Coraline? When was Coraline?
Let me research.
Yeah, when was Coraline?
A long time ago, Neil Gaiman did it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Coraline book.
So, honestly, a disappointing story, because what is that ending? The story within the story was much more interesting, and I said it was an inconclusive and foolhardy ending. Because how stupid are you?
Oh.
When was it written?
2002.
2002. So it was actually around the same time as this book. So maybe not a reference to Coraline.
What? No, first published in 2005, but who knows when he wrote it.
See, that's what I'm saying. He wrote some of these stories before the book. The book was him putting them all together. So possibly he had seen Coraline, but also possibly not, since they came out so close together. Yeah.
For that specific one.
Yeah. So maybe not. I'm not going to dock him on that. Like, he didn't necessarily read Coraline. But genuinely, the horror author stuff, leave that shit out. Just put in Button Boy as just like a one-page short story that's really creepy, and you'd be good. So that's the first one. Second one, Namesake, 20th Century Ghost. Not horror at all. Is it about ghosts? Correct.
Horror.
Ghosts do not mean horror.
I'm scared.
It's not a scary ghost. She just sits in a movie theater.
Ghosts horrify me.
So, here's the plot. It's about a movie theater, and the theater owner falls in love with a ghost girl that haunts the theater she died in. Basically, she had like an aneurysm watching specifically The Wizard of Oz. It's not saying like bad things about The Wizard of Oz, it's just like that happens to be the movie. And so, because she didn't finish the movie, her ghost stays and watches every movie in that theater and sits in the same seat. And it becomes a well-known thing at this theater that she's haunting it. And she's not mean. She just vibes, watches whatever movie's there. And occasionally she'll talk to a person if they sit beside her. But you have to be like a special person.
Oh, that's not horror.
And
that's
that's what I'm saying. It's not horror.
Cute.
It's really not horror.
That's a love story.
And so basically, as a kid, the theater owner had gone to this theater and seen her and talked to her and didn't realize she was a ghost. Until he talked to the original owner and was like, oh no, you saw her. You saw her. Yeah, she died. Like, she had an aneurysm during Wizard of Oz, and she's been here ever since. And so basically, he grows up, buys the theater, reinvigorates it, like redoes it, and gets to know her, and ends up falling in love with her. And she falls in love with him, and he dies in the theater kissing her.
Did she kill him?
No, he basically, like, his heart gave out. I think
Aneurysm.
yeah, like, basically, I think it's like implied that like he died the same way she died.
Yeah.
But they won't necessarily haunt it. See, because that's the thing. She may have finished her like deal now that she found him, so maybe it's not haunted anymore.
Yeah.
But that was the whole story. A cute story, not scary. But here's some things to consider. First of all, the name dropping in this story is absurd. First of all, Wizard of Oz. Why? Like, I know it's a whimsical movie and you want to see the end, but like, why?
I mean,
So
wasn't it one of the first movies in color? which is why they made the shoes
Maybe.
red instead
That's
of silver.
fair. That's fair.
And like, you know how you watch the flashing movies and it has like a seizure warning at the
Oh,
front of
yeah.
it? Maybe they didn't know what that was.
Maybe. So there's Wizard of Oz. Then he name drops Tom Hanks, the actor. Then he name drops Steven Spielberg, the director. But he changes his name to Steven Greenberg. And you know it's Steven Spielberg because he's working with Tom Hanks. Why not change Tom Hanks, but change Steven Spielberg to Steven Greenberg?
Yeah.
That's fucking weird. Like, I don't understand the point of name dropping and then changing names. Because, first of all, why are you name dropping? And this is supposed to be like random small town. You're telling me that he goes off and meets Steven Spielberg?
But also, he's over here, he also says Walt Disney.
Yeah, he name drops a lot. I'm saying he
Oh.
interacts with Steven Spielberg,
Oh,
Steven
okay.
Greenberg.
But he
And I was
names
like,
a lot because I'm here first
he
thing I see
name
is Sinatra.
drops so much.
Sinatra, Walt Disney.
So
What?
much. Shut the fuck up. If it's a fiction story, then do fiction shit unless the name is important. It's not important. The fact is the Wizard of Oz isn't important. What's important is that she's there haunting and interacting with people, and you see like the different versions of people that interact with her, and you hear their stories and stuff. That's what's important. So all these name drops, they could all be fake fucking people. Why are they real people? Writing wise, half the story is printed in italics for no reason. You would think that the italics would just be like when she talks, or maybe just in the past. No, it just fucking changes. It's really weird. It should only be used for emphasis, but there's like whole fucking paragraphs in italics, and it's annoying to read.
Yeah.
It's fucking annoying to read, and it's weird. And it seems like he's trying to make italics when the narrator is talking, but the whole thing is third person omniscient.
But that doesn't make sense.
So like, why is it all italics? Stop.
Oh my god, I'm starting to realize that.
See, it's so
And I'm over here
irritating.
like, why is that? What?
It's so irritating. Like, what editor approved all of it to be in italics? You can't read italics. That's so irritating. I did like the story itself, but the name dropping that kept happening in the italics kept pulling me out of the fucking story. And I don't like that. That irritated the fuck out of me. Story number 3 is called Pop Art. This is going to start another one of our patterns, which is literal title meaning. I'm not mad at this. I'm just pointing it out as a pattern. So the title Pop Art is a literal title, and it's not in the way you think, which I do appreciate. Not horror, again. So what this is about is there's a balloon boy named Art. And the whole story is about the probability of him popping.
He made out of balloons?
He's made out of balloons. It's a very much like Pinocchio situation, except he just exists as a balloon person, and there's other balloon people in the world. It's like a race. Like, he sets it up as like a different race, basically. Yes, and there's racism. There's people who make fun of him for being a balloon. Yep, of course. But basically, the story is about the probability of him popping and how carefully he must live his life and you're seeing his story through the eyes of his human best friend. And he has to live life super carefully. He has dreams of flying into space. He just wants to fly, because he has to, like a wind could pull him away. And that's honestly what he wants. He wants to, like, go see the sky, which obviously as a balloon, if balloons go up too high, they pop because of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But at the end of the story, he eventually commits suicide by allowing the air, like popping himself, allowing the air to fall out. And he floats away into the sky, and his best friend watches it happen and just stares off until he can't see them anymore. So here's the thing. That sounds like the ending, because it should be. But he didn't make it the ending. The ending, it was continued to reveal that his human friend marries a balloon girl in the future. And then it ends. Why? You're like, I loved balloon people so much that I'm gonna fuck one. Like, why? Just let it end with him committing suicide. It's a good story. Just let it end. The whole going off and dating and marrying a balloon girl, pointless. Absolutely pointless. I usually don't like stories with metaphor for racism or ableism because I feel like it's way too on the fucking nose, and I'm very annoyed. Because if you're gonna write about racism or ableism, then write about racism or ableism. Don't like make it some fictional bullshit. Specific example, Zootopia. I hate Zootopia. I hate Zootopia. I was forced to watch Zootopia on a band trip. Hate Zootopia. If you want to talk about racism, just fucking talk about it. Not fucking, ooh, the predators are bad because they might kill us and we're hooray, we're rabbits. We're such good people.
Dude, it was like...
I hate
just
Zootopia.
Just be free and clear. Like...
If you want to talk about it, talk about it. Don't fucking make it animals. Oh, that shit made me angry.
The kids can understand it. It wasn't made for
but
adults.
Kids can understand color.
Yeah.
Kids are better about it than any of us. Because kids don't fucking know racism. It's taught.
Yeah.
Like, just, if you want to make a movie about racism, just fucking make a movie about racism. Don't make them fucking animals. Oh, I hate Zootopia. Hate it.
But they're not going to make a movie about systematic crime and everything for little children. They're not. I feel like sometimes.
But I don't like the metaphors.
Yeah.
Because also, here's the thing: the children aren't going to get the metaphor. If they're that young, they're just going to be like, "Why are people mad at the tiger?" They're not going to understand. Also, in this book, if you were trying on the topic of the racism thing, the kids never learn to accept the balloon people. Like, if you were trying to do some like moral higher ground, you didn't do it. Like he just got bullied. And then the girl balloon person that the main character ended up marrying also had to deal with that too. Like, it didn't get better for them. So
why couldn't you choose something
it was weird.
else, like
it was very weird.
Something? Why did it have to be inflatable?
I like the idea of an inflatable person that commits suicide by going off into the sky. That whole story arc, I like a lot.
Maybe that's why. Maybe he started with that idea.
Yeah.
And that's how he built it around
The story arc, I really like a lot. And I think the title Pop Art, as in physically popping himself, I think is a great title. I just don't like that he added in the, like, aspect of, like, bullying and stuff. I think, or, like, the racism part of, like, people were like, oh, you can't do this because you're a balloon. I think if you instead would have taken out, like, the school part, the society part, and just focused on this balloon boy and his best friend and how he lives differently. He lives with, like, Band-Aids on him and, like, being very careful and talking about how his house doesn't have, like, sharp objects and, like, things like that, and just leave out the other shit. Just start it as this is an accepted fact that this is how this boy lives, and you just look at it.
Yeah.
And just leave out the bullying and, like, the racism side of it. I think it would have been a much better story of just, you see how this boy lives. He wants to be free. He frees himself.
Yeah. Because it's
end
about
it there.
What's on the inside.
Exactly. Like, and end it there. Don't be like, this guy pity fucks a balloon girl and fucking, like... They don't fuck, but they date and fall in love. And that was the, like, one, as far as it said in the story, he's only dated that one balloon person, and he only dated them after his balloon best friend died. So it's giving wanting another balloon person in your life.
It's giving
instead of just naturally being attracted to them the whole story. So it's weird. Just leave that part out.
How would they...
Fuck if I know.
Dude, wouldn't it be funny, though, if he popped himself and he was a water balloon? Or, like, filled with Hawaiian Punch or something.
Hawaiian Punch? You'd be hunted down on the playground if it was filled with Hawaiian Punch.
He wouldn't have been bullied. He wouldn't have been bullied at all.
No, he would have to sacrifice his fucking lifeblood.
Let me cut off my finger. Here you go.
Sacrifice his lifeblood to, like, fucking not get bullied at school. My God.
Someday he will pop, and we will all enjoy.
Jesus Christ.
The kids are standing around him in a circle, just, like, covered in Hawaiian Punch.
Yeah. Now, I will say another interpretation for the story that I did think of is the story being the idea of being friends with someone who's terminally ill. And so the idea of, like, spending years with someone, getting to know someone, knowing that they will die. So, like, it wasn't guaranteed that art would pop. Like, there were precautions in place and he could get patched up and, like, stuff like that. So, it's not, like, guaranteed that he wasn't going to live a full life, or full-length life, I guess. But you could see the implication of, like, this person could be gone at any moment. So, could be, like, friends with a cancer patient or something like that. Because you also see in the story, you see him slowly, as he gets older, he gets more, like, little pops in him. He gets more patches.
Yeah.
He doesn't hold air as well. So it does also give that story, which, again, I think you can do without the fucking bullying. Again, you don't need the bullying. You don't need to add in that, like, racism thing.
If you're full of air, it's pretty, reasonable to think that
Yeah.
boy gets bullied.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, if you do it as a terminally ill patient, do it as living with someone who's disabled and has to, like, have a very specific way that they live so that they don't die, like, those stories are fine, and I love it, and I love the metaphor, and it's whatever. It's just, I hate the racism aspect of, like, because you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
You can focus on the disability and the terminally ill and be, like, just a fine story. So that's pop art.
How do they survive evolution?
How are they here, period? How do they have a conscience? They're made of air. And plastic.
I've met a few people that are made out of plastic and just full of air. Like, okay.
The boobs that can pop. The boobs that can pop. Okay. So, next story. Story number 4. It's called You Will Hear the Locust Sing, which is a play on If the Caged Bird Can Sing. Is that what that book is called? I think it's The Caged Bird Can Sing. It's an old, like, classic book,
Yeah.
which is what that reminds me of. Obviously, this one is more demanding because it's You Will Hear, and then it's a locust. So this one I would consider horror. I would. Not just the tip. I like actual horror. I would consider it. I don't find it scary, but if you... See, I don't like bugs, though. So if I saw this in real life, like, I'd probably get really freaked out. So basically, this is metamorphosis, which I don't super appreciate, because I would like you, especially if this is, like, your debut, whatever, to not be rewriting a story that's well known. But this is basically, like, his version of metamorphosis. So a boy wakes up as a giant locust, and when he realizes that he's a locust, he goes to the dump because he's trying to get food, because he's starving, because he's not little locust, he's human boy-sized locust. So he goes to the dump because he's trying to get food to eat, because he's starving in this new body. Can't find anything to eat there. He tries, like, all the trash, all the, like, what he thinks a locust would eat. Doesn't work. He's still starving. Goes home. His dad's a deadbeat. He has a girlfriend who's also a deadbeat, who basically just, like, live at the house and do, like, next to nothing. And he kills his dad and eats him on accident. He accidentally kills him because locusts have these, like, razor sharp, like, thingies, and he just, like, murks his dad. And then he eats them because it turns out he feeds on humans. That's what he needs to eat.
That's why he was so hungry.
That's why he was so hungry. He
Poor
needed
boy.
people. And then he also murks his dad's girlfriend and eats her. But we didn't care about that one specifically because she was useless to begin with and not his real mom. So then he goes to school. I just start slaughtering. Didn't care. Just slaughtering. And then the army shows up to the school.
What?
And then he flies away singing or making the noise that Locust makes. And that's the whole story. I can't do it either. But that's the whole story.
Is it about a school shooter?
Basically, I would say.
Okay.
I would say basically it's school shooter as a bug. He wakes up and decides that today's the day, basically. But I don't like that it's very reminiscent of Metamorphosis. Except in Metamorphosis, I know he tries to be like a person and doesn't just go full bug, like rogue, like Merc. But it gives Metamorphosis, and in your debut, I would really appreciate only original work. Like, you're really trying to put yourself out there. Maybe don't try to build off of other things, maybe try to prove your like originality. Because like look at his novels, like Horns, Heart-Shaped Box and stuff, like those are original stories. Like I haven't read anything like Horns. So that's, I didn't super appreciate that. Honestly, it's a very just weird story, which I don't say that in a bad way. It's just, it's an odd, it's very like sci-fi, like weird. I like the ending. This is one of the very few things in this book that I like the ending of. I like the ending. The army shows up and he's like, fuck y'all. I'm here for it, you know? The town is mentioned to be near a nuclear test site, so it is implied that something could have happened with like the water or the air that like made him change, which also makes sense.
Well, I hope somebody else turned into one so he could have friends.
He doesn't need friends. He's murking people.
Everyone needs friends.
I don't think a Locust does.
I think
but
he does.
Oh my god. And then also there's like, I would say biblical references to Locust and the apocalypse with the locust curses on Egypt in Exodus, and then in Revelations when the apocalypse comes and part of it is hordes of locusts.
Yes.
Which I also think is really cool. I love a good biblical reference. So honestly, a weird story, not bad. Just didn't. I wish it was original. I wish the idea of like becoming a bug was original, but it's not. So I kind of wish you would have done something else. But whatever. Okay, next book, the one that you first mentioned, Abraham's Boys. So this one I would also consider actual horror, but just slightly. This one is another one where it's like just a tip because barely anything happens, but it is horror. Now this one is another weird sexual thing. This one was not necessary. It was just it was him trying to make this dude look as crazy as possible. Abraham, the father of the boys of said title.
The father of what's his name too in the Bible.
Oh, that's true. So
that's why I was like, this is horror because it's about Abraham from the Bible. That's why I was like, that sounds a little scary.
Facts.
Because he was in the Bible. I didn't like him.
So the plot is there's two boys and their father. Their father is a doctor. The father is very superstitious, specifically of vampires. He's insanely strict and he beats them brutally for disobeying him. The mother died of a blood sickness. It's not said what time period we're in, but we're in a time period where it's still called blood sickness and not like leukemia or something.
In a time period that had vampires?
Technically, any time period could have vampires, including now. But his mother died of a blood sickness, and when the book starts, you find out that their elderly neighbor has supposedly the same sickness. And you see, it starts out with the two boys like helping their elderly neighbor do something, and she's sick, and they realize that she's sick with the same thing their mother had. Then they go home, they get beaten because they're late going home. And then they start talking about their relationship with their father. They sneak to his study, and they find out that their father is the one who's giving the people the blood sickness. And in his mind, he is killing vampires by driving them through with stakes and stuffing their mouths with garlic and cutting off their head, which is all old vampire lore.
How is that blood sickness?
Hold on. So he takes pictures of his victims, and that's where the weird sexual thing is, because he has some very sexually explicit pictures of said victims that were young women that he put in sexually explicit poses and things. And he took pictures as documentation.
This is just Dahmer shit.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that when you look at the pictures, the victims don't have fangs, and that's a big thing. It implies in the story that he is the one poisoning them and giving them this blood sickness, that he is the one diagnosing them with because he is the doctor. And so he killed his wife, and he killed the lady next door because she does die. And so when the boys figure this out by finding like the stuff in his study, he's like, it's time for you guys to join the family business. And so he tries to convince the boys that he's doing something good, and they realize, they're the ones who point out they don't have fangs. And he goes, well, they would, because they're vampires. And we're like, but do they? Are they? And so that's where the implication is that either they are vampires and they just don't have fangs showing, or they aren't vampires and their dad is the one doing this. And it's left open-ended. But basically he shows them his lair, which is like their basement, and he explains to them what they're doing, what he's doing, and he wants his two boys to join them. And the older boy takes one of the stakes he's got down there and runs his dad through with it.
Oh, what a trooper.
And so the irony is he did join the family business, but they killed their father to end this nonsense. Genuinely like the story. I thought it was good. Also, I'm fucked up on vampire shit. You hand me a vampire story, I'm like, I'm here for it. And then I also put, I love the ambiguity of whether or not the people were actually vampires and that it wasn't actually answered. So either he is mad or he is right and is killing vampires. And I love that you don't know. That's one of the times where I really did like the ambiguity. So I would recommend Abraham's Boys. Next book, number 6, is called Better Than Home. This is about baseball. This is also a pattern. He likes baseball, apparently. I don't know why. So this is called Better Than Home. It's referencing home plate in baseball, but it's also referencing like a baseball field being like their home because they grew up on it in the story. Not horror at all. At all. Nothing scary in it. The whole story is a boy with some sort of mental health issue. It's never specified. It's either some sort of like mental health or like special needs, some sort of something. Talks about his relationship with his dad and baseball. That's the whole plot. Notice nothing happens. Take note of that. Because I did. Nothing happens. It just talks about his dad. And nothing happens. And it's so weird, okay? So the baseball stadium is what they're referring to as Better Than Home, because he and his dad both like baseball better than they like anything else. So they feel very like at peace and at home on the baseball field. Nothing plot-wise happens. It's very confusing. It's written like the boy is going through his memories at random, because they also aren't in chronological order. There's no plot. There's no development of anything. I don't know what point he's trying to get across or if he had a point. It's giving just reminiscing on memories. And I really don't know what's the point of writing that down at that point and like publishing it. But it starts off by showing his father's explosive anger during a baseball game. And he's like, this is somewhat modern day because they see it on TV. And he and his mother watch this happen on TV. His father's not on the team, but he's like maybe a coach or something. He has explosive anger. And they see it on TV because the TV like pans in on it. And him and his mother are just sweeping under the rug. And I thought this was implying that they were going to be addressing like a dad with anger issues, a dad with problems, and what that implies, and what it implies for the mother to do nothing about it and just be used to it. No, not referenced ever again. Then it shows the problems the boy deals with mentally and how his father is actually the best at dealing with him and at helping him. Like, one thing they specifically show is that he has a big thing about hearing noises, and they stay in a hotel room where something is tapping. It's like something in a vent is tapping, and the boy can't sleep because it's tapping. And instead, he wakes up his dad at like 3 a.m. because he can't sleep. And instead of his father being angry, his father pulls open the vent and like does something to it so that the tapping stops. Like, he's very patient, he's very understanding. He doesn't get mad at being awakened by the boy. He helps him, right? And so that shows a very good fatherly bond, which is very confusing when you started the story with him being an explosively angry man. So that was weird. And it makes his character as a father very confusing. Because, like, it's not okay to act so explosive and then push it under the rug and then pretend that didn't happen. Like, it's very weird.
But I thought dads were supposed to do that.
Oh my God. But because it's also like, if you live with a person, doesn't have to be a man, who is so explosive, wouldn't that instill some sort of fear in you as a child where you would be worried that he would explode?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that was our upbringing.
Yeah.
with our dads.
That's why I was like,
yeah, exactly.
Normal.
And so that's why I'm so confused as why he either include, I don't know, like, I feel bad to say it, but I wonder if he's referencing his own, like, upbringing with his father, which I don't want to say because I don't want to speculate because I don't know anything about his upbringing, but I wonder if some of this is him processing stuff with his father, because there are a lot of father figures in this book.
Yeah.
And I wonder that, but then I'm also like, I'm so confused by displaying the father as someone explosively angry, like just ridiculous, just putting on a fucking drama queen show at the baseball field when something bad happens to the team. And then the whole rest of the time show him as this very caring person to this child who needs help. It's really weird, and it doesn't match.
Maybe he's just trying too hard to get away from his dad's shadow, or he had some messed up childhood.
See, another thing that this book does make me do is it makes me wonder about Joe Hill's childhood, genuinely. Because I'm like, some of it is written like people processing things. And I'm like, I do wonder if you're processing something, but I don't want to, like, I'm not for sure saying that. I know nothing about Joe Hill.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying that.
I didn't get that
I'm
degree.
just wondering. And then they do in the story hint at sending the boy to a special needs school. And they do, like, go visit said school. And they show this weird scene of a teacher at the school handling a child clearly having an episode. And I don't deal with special needs, so I'm not entirely sure how you should deal with people having an episode. And I know it differs depending on what's wrong. But in the book, it didn't seem like they dealt with it well. And then they never speak about it again. And that's like kind of the end of the book. And I was like, are you trying to show that this place wouldn't be good for the son? Or like, what is happening? It was so confusing.
It doesn't seem like it fits in.
It was so confusing. It doesn't fit together. So, that's better than home. The next story is The Black Phone. We're skipping this? Yes.
I'll be right back.
Where are you going?
Over here.
Are you peeing?
Yes.
Okay. 7 is The Black Phone. Skipping that. Another video. 8 is called In the Rundown. Now, that is a baseball reference, by the way. But it's not about baseball, the actual story. So, I will say something gory happens, but I wouldn't consider it horror. I would just consider it gory. But I feel like if it's horror, I need to be scared. Like, or like some stakes, maybe? Not like physical stakes, but like there needs to be some sort of stakes, I feel like, with horror. And this one, it's not really.
Something big on the line.
Yeah. There is weird sexual shit that has nothing to do with the story. It's just put in there for no reason. There is a baseball reference, but it's not about baseball. The baseball reference is that he would steal bases as a kid, and one time he got caught between the first and second baseman, and it gave him trauma because it was like he couldn't run away because he had people coming at him from both sides, and so that gave him like weird trauma. Whatever.
Just quit baseball.
He stopped playing after that.
Well, good call.
Because apparently what he was good at was stealing bases.
And
like,
so
that was like his
dream.
thing. I don't know.
Wait, can I make a note though?
Yeah.
An old guy had come into the store. A 40-year-old. How old is Joe Hill?
How old is Joe Hill? And how old was he when he wrote this?
This is 2005,
Well,
so we can go back.
So, like, 19 years ago.
Okay, Joe Hill. How is 40-year-old old? It's not even out of my range. 51, so 20 years ago.
He would have been 31.
So why would
so
you
were
think
calling
40
someone 9 years older than you old?
I am 25 years of age, and 40 isn't out of my age range.
No, it's not.
It's not old at all.
No, it's not.
Bro.
Hate that.
That's the first thing I saw, and I was like, I need to say something because...
Hate that. So, there's that. Do with that what you will. So, the weird sexual thing is, the guy works at this is during the time of, like, Blockbuster still being a thing. And he works at, like, a movie rental place. And there's a girl who works with him, and she's goth and, like, weird. And she has, like, a piercing. that becomes a thing. That becomes a thing. And she basically beats this guy at the store, and he witnesses a makeout session between these two people, and he finds it just utterly disgusting. That has absolutely nothing to do with the story. And he does a makeout session, not in like a teenage way of doing a makeout session, in like a weird, disgusting adult way of doing a makeout session, and it has nothing to do with the story. Nothing. It's just there. So, the plot is, a guy gets fired from his job at the movie rental place. This is the same day that he witnesses the makeout, and he's disgusted by it. He gets fired for telling off a rude customer. No, sorry, telling off a rude coworker, this girl, who is rude to him, and then he's rude back, basically. But then he goes into the office to get fired, and come to find out, he's had multiple issues with staff and customers, and that this is the final straw for the store head. So he is the issue, is what we've learned. So he walks home, and he recognizes a car on the roadside as a mother and two kids that come to the video store often. And they're like pulled off on the side of the road with the door open. So obviously he realizes that something's wrong. And he had just seen her earlier that day before he had gotten fired, drive with her two kids to a hardware store across the street from the video store. And she went in really quickly and came out and seemingly didn't get anything. She was just grabbing her coat when she came out. So that was odd. So he walks up to the car, and he, in the car, sees that she has two sons. One's older, one's like between 5 and 10, and one is still like toddler. So in the car, he sees that the older boy has had his throat slit open, and the mother is cradling him in her arms as he bleeds out on her, and she was just holding him and crying, and she was like, we got attacked, like someone came and attacked us. And he looks up to the back where the younger boy was sitting in like a car seat, and he describes the younger boy as not moving and looking blue. That is the only description we get of the younger boy. We do not know if he lived or died. That irks the fuck out of me. You didn't check? Mm-hmm. You didn't check. Anyway, so he comes up, he sees these two boys. One's supposedly dead, one bleeding out in his mother's lap. She's like crying hysterically. She's like, we got attacked. And he's like, who? Where? What happened? Like, what happened? And she was like, someone tried to take the car, and he had a knife, and he hurt my son, and then he ran away. He ran off into the woods. So the guy goes looking around the car, like around the outside of the car, like into the woods, try to see if he sees anything, any sort of path, any whatever. Doesn't see anything. He's like, and it doesn't look like the car got broken into either. So he walks back around, he's looking at the mother, and he notices there's a knife next to her. A bloody knife. A knife that they sell at the hardware store across the street. What had happened is that the mother had gone to the hardware store across the street, stolen the knife, hidden it in her coat, which is why she was clutching it as she left the store, driven to a remote roadside beside the woods, and murdered her sons. And then she didn't cut the throat deep enough of her older son, so he was still alive and bleeding out in her arms, and it made her freak out. So when she gets caught, she tries to say that someone else did it, not her, because she was realizing like the consequences of her actions. And then he sees the knife, and he's like, you killed your son. Where did that knife come from? And so he's trying to, like, inch closer to her. He's trying to be like, put it down, chill the fuck out. And she attacks him. But he beats her off pretty easily. And instead of, like, going back to her kid, she wanders up the road. Just fucks off up the road. And so the guy's like, okay, the kid's bleeding out. So he goes to the kid. The kid is still alive because she didn't cut deep enough, but he is bleeding out from the cut. And he's like trying to stuff like his jacket, like stuff into the cut to try to stop the bleeding, but the blood is soaking through everything. Like, the boy pretty much doesn't have a chance. But he's trying. And so he positions the boy so that he can kind of like hold something to his throat. And he's like, I'm gonna go run and get help. I'm just gonna run and get help. Like, just try not to die. So he starts running up the road. And this is why it's called In the Rundown. Because he compares this to being stuck when he was running between bases. Because he sees a cop in the distance. And he's running to the cop. But he realizes he's probably not going to get there in time. And so it's very like you're stuck in between these two awful things.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And then it just ends with him running towards the cop. I assume the boy died. I hate the title and I hate the reference.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball isn't cute. Stop trying to make, like, this is me, girl. Stop trying to make fetch a thing. Like, stop trying to make baseball a thing. Like, it has nothing to do with anything. Like, you only said that so you could be like, this guy's good at running. Like, stupid. For you to think of that comparison, what hurt you with baseball?
Yeah.
Joe Hill, sir, as an author, who hurt you with baseball?
I don't think his dad played catch with him.
Like, who hurt you with that? It's so random. And it's so dumb. And whatever. Okay, and then there's a weird emphasis also. Again, this has nothing to do with the story. There is an emphasis on the main character not being able to read well because of a learning disability. There is a pattern of disabled people in his writing. I don't know why. I find it very odd. So it is explicitly said that the main character, has a learning disability and does not read well at all. But he never has to read anything in the story. So what's the important thing? Why is he disabled? It has nothing to do with the story. He never reads anything. And the only time it comes up is so the rude girl at work that got him fired is being rude to him, and then he's rude back. And one of the things she calls him is the R word that means learning disability. She calls him that. And then he talks about how she's referencing the fact that he can't read. And then that's it. And I was like, if you're going to spend this much time talking about how you couldn't read, only to then never read, like, what's the point? There is no point. It's fucking weird. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
He talks a lot about how the rude coworker got her tongue pierced specifically. And it's that she got it pierced the same day that the main character gets fired. And he took a lot, all caps, a lot of time to describe how much it disgusted him that her tongue was bleeding. Because when you get a new piercing, it bleeds. And the thicker the, like, skin, tongue tissue, whatever it goes through, the more it's gonna bleed. Because you just stab something through your body. First day, you're gonna bleed. That's just kind of a fact of the matter. And especially with mouth stuff, you can't really do much about the bleeding. Because you just kind of have to wait for it to heal itself. You're waiting. Oh. And so he's talking about how when you first get a tongue piercing, it bleeds, and she's holding tissues to her tongue. And the tissues are turning red because her tongue is bleeding because she just got it pierced. And he's talking about how he finds that just, like, the most disgusting thing anyone could ever do.
Oh, wait, and so she was the one making out with somebody?
And she was the one making out
with somebody. And that's why he was so disgusted?
Well, he finds her entirely disgusting. And he finds the dude that she was making out with also disgusting because he said an older man. But,
Is that the 40-year-old man?
Yes.
Ugh.
But it's like the blood specifically is what's disgusting him, and then that gets referenced again when the boy is bleeding, where the blood just keeps coming, and he relates it to the blood of her tongue that just keeps bleeding because it's a fresh piercing, and that's how piercings work. Quote on page 170. The girl the girl who he hates, the rude coworker, her last name is Kensington. So he said, he had a thought, strange for him, a thought that connected Kensington and the silver pen in her tongue and the slash across Baxter, the boy who got his throat slit. He thought about how the young are pierced by love, innocent bodies torn and ruined for no reason, save that it suited someone who held them dear. And the comparison he's making is that he believes that the girl is changing herself to make the older man like her, because she didn't have a piercing before she just started, like, fucking the older man. And that's, like, the comparison. The young are pierced by love, innocent bodies torn and ruined for no reason, save that it suited someone who held them dear. Now, is this a good quote? Yes, in reference to the boy's throats being slit, because it suited his mother. In reference to a tongue piercing, fuck no. Are you insane? Are you insane? You think I did this to myself because my man wanted me to? Bitch. My man don't give a fuck. Nope. I did this because I fucking felt like it. Like, sure, she might have done it for a man, but it's a fucking tongue piercing.
Yeah, it's not that serious.
But it's not that serious.
It's not that serious.
He's talking about it like he deflowered her. Like, oh my god. She put a piece of metal in her tongue. It's not, like, all, like, he's talking about body modification like a fucking conservative Christian.
People do, and you get a tattoo and they don't want you to, so they lick their thumb and just try to wipe it off and just pretend, and it's like, just stop.
When I first started getting tattoos, my dad said, you're dirty. My dad would be like, oh, your leg's dirty. Oh, your arm's dirty.
My body is a temple, and guess what you put in temple? Paintings! The most beautiful temples and churches and everything are covered in paintings and beautiful, beautiful things, and guess what? My body is a temple that I'm gonna put whatever I want on it.
So that's one of the things that started giving me an ick about him as an author, because I understand there's a separation between what someone's writing and themselves as a person, but you also don't write certain things unless you think like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
how are you so good at giving us the ick?
Yeah, like, why would you write something about a piercing being so disgusting if you aren't disgusted by piercings? Because that has nothing to do with this character in the story. Like, that feels like the author is disgusted by piercings.
What does bro look like?
Not cute.
He looks like he would hate girls with piercings.
He does. But then he also looks like a nerd who would be at, like, fucking TwitchCon or something trying to get the big titty goth girl to be his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So that, it's giving, especially because it's written in third person. Like, it switches, but it doesn't even switch in this one. It's third person, and so it is basically the omniscient narrator perspective saying all these things. And so you're like, it's giving the author believes these things. That's what it's giving. I initially thought this would very much be a wrong place, wrong time story, where he would, like, the mother would kill him. Like, he happened upon her mid-murder, and she's like, well, now you gotta go too. And then he dies, and it's like a wrong place, wrong time thing. He's just an unfortunate character. And then it turned into the baseball reference, and I was like, this is dumb as shit. This is dumb as shit.
At least there was a reason for the baseball thing to be in there.
Yeah. And, like, or I thought that he would get caught with the knife after fighting off the mom.
Yeah.
And then get blamed. I thought it was gonna be the cop comes, the mom's like, he hurt my babies, and then he gets put in jail. And it's again unfortunate. Like, that just he is an unfortunate man. Though. Oh, it still could happen. It still could happen. But if they find the mom, then it wouldn't. But who knows where she wandered off to. And then I put again about the second son, the younger son, that he never checks on once. It says that he looks asleep and has a blue tint. It's giving suffocation. But check.
Yeah.
Check. Like, the
Should be
other
a
boy
concern.
deserves to be concerned about too. Like, hello. So that irritated me because he never checks. He's just like, this one boy. And I'm like, what about his fucking brother? Like, maybe he's dead, but make sure he's dead before you just completely ignore him. And then I put, as the last thing, the whole story reads as something super forced together. Like, it's multiple bits that are just forced together and they don't make sense together. Yeah. So wouldn't recommend that one. Okay, next story is called The Cape. This one is another literal title because it is about a cape. Magic. Anyway. There is sexual shit in this. It is also unnecessary, but he again uses it as a way to show that the dude is crazy, basically. And also notice, it's again sexual against women. Not against men, against women. Murder happens, but I wouldn't call it horror. I really wouldn't. So the plot. A kid climbs a tree with his blankie tied around his neck like a cape. And he climbs a tree to get away from his brother that's annoying him. He climbs too high, and the branch that he was on falls under his weight. And instead of falling, he hovers. And his cape, like, just little flaps in the wind behind him, right? Magic cape. And then the wind comes, unties the knot at his neck, blows the cape off, and he plummets, hits the ground. So he gets seriously injured. He lives, but he does get seriously injured, and he has to get taken to the hospital, and he has to stay there for a while as he heals because he, like, broke a bunch of bones and stuff. His brother witnessed his magic cape work, took the cape because it just flew off, like, into the yard, so they still had it, tied it around himself, jumped down a flight of stairs. It did not hover for him. He just broke his face.
Okay, very smart.
Yeah.
How old?
Children. I don't remember an age, but I don't know, 7 and 5 maybe, like very young. So his brother breaks his face. They had to get his jaw wired shut, like basically lands on his chin. So then the mom freaks out and is like, y'all are crazy. We're getting rid of the blanket. Blankie is no more. Y'all gotta stop. And so both boys, as they begin to grow up further, they develop a love of comic books, but the older brother throws them away one day to impress a girl who's coming over to their house. Rude. Then the main boy, it starts being talked about that the main boy has an unhealthy obsession with Lord of the Flies, which I think we all have to read that in school. But that's like, boys get on a deserted island and they make their own society, and there's like a good leader and a bad leader who's crazy, and the crazy boy wins, and they like become animalistic and they paint their face and like all this stuff, and that boy is Jack. And so the main character here has a very unhealthy obsession with Jack from Lord of the Flies, which, creepy, but also name dropping. Stop it. It irks me, the name dropping. But Lord of the Flies comes up so much in here. And I really wish it would have just been like a passing reference and not even Lord of the Flies. Maybe just like a painted face or something. Like, stop name dropping. Stop. We get it, you read.
I know, it seems like he was forced to read all these books.
Yeah, like, we get
Not
it, you
by
read.
his teachers, but like by his dad.
Like, congratulations, you have a library. So it starts there as a kid that he has an unhealthy obsession with Lord of the Flies. Now, main boy steals the girl his brother brought over from his brother, and they actually stay together for a long time, and they grow up, and the girl gets a real job and gets an apartment, and he moves into the apartment with her. He's useless, does nothing, doesn't work, and ends up getting a DUI driving her car while she's at work. So just all around great fellow.
I mean, This is the same kid that jumped down a flight of stairs?
No, this is the one that fell from the tree.
Oh.
This is the one that fell from the tree.
Oh, they're both a little dumb.
Yeah, they're both stupid. So he scares her off. After the DUI, she's pretty much fed up, but he scares her off because he does this thing where they're in the kitchen and she's trying to discuss his DUI with him and how it was in her car because he doesn't have a car because he doesn't work. And he starts singing the Kill the Pig song from Lord of the Flies, which is just basically saying kill the pig because they hunt boar on this deserted island. And he's singing it in the kitchen while staring at her throat and holding a kitchen knife.
But am I wrong, or isn't there a kid that they called Pig?
Piggy?
Piggy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so Kill the Pig.
Oh, Kill the Pig was about Piggy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was about Piggy. So that was about killing a person, so even better. So that was interesting. And she skirted out after that. So then he has to move back in with his mother. And the whole book, he fantasizes about moving to Alaska to live in the real wilderness. And that was like a dream that he had the whole book. He wanted to live in the wilderness. Because you can murk people there. I don't know. Then he's living in the basement. He's again not working, doing nothing. So he's going through all of their like old stuff in the basement because he's a nosy bitch. And he finds out that his mom did not, in fact, get rid of the blanket. She just stuffed it with a bunch of other blankets in the basement and hoped the boys wouldn't find it. So he takes it and he paints his face with red lipstick to make a mask like Jack's, and likes the new look so much that he decides that it's his new face. And he puts the cape around him. And it works. And so he slowly, in the basement, learns how to control the cape by flying, basically like levitating, like holding his legs like this, levitating above the ground and learning how to like turn and stuff like this with his painted face. Creep. I have a quote on page 187. He did a perspective shift for no reason and then went back also for no reason. So the whole thing is written omniscient. And then it goes... Well, not omniscient. Sorry, the whole thing is written in first person. Sorry, it's I. So it's written in first person. And then it goes, you want to hear now that I felt a rush of excitement, whooped at the thrill of flight. You want to hear now. So now you're breaking the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. Now you know that you're being read about, but it's not implied in the story that this is being written down. What was that sentence? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I don't know what that was. It was so confusing. So then, after that weird fourth wall break, he flies to his ex's house, watches her shower through the window, taps on the glass once she's out of the shower. She lets him in. He's just floating outside her window and taps on the glass. And she's in, like, a negligee, basically. And he lets her in. I mean, she lets him in. Into the house.
That's creepy.
She lets him in. Remember, his face is painted with red lipstick. Mm-hmm. She acknowledges that the lipstick is weird. Doesn't stop her from agreeing to sit on his lap after he offers to fly her around.
What the...
He flies her up and out the window, goes super high in the air, and even though she protests, because the higher up you go, the colder it gets, and she's in a negligee, so she's fucking freezing.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't stop. And then he gets super high, and she's like, I'm really cold, can we go back down, please? Like, and he's like, look at the view, or like, whatever the fuck. And then he just tips her off his lap. And it describes her clawing at his neck to try to hold on, and him just, like, taking her fingers off and dropping her.
What the heck?
And that ends with him saying he wants to show his cape to his brother and basically do the same thing to his brother. So very fucked up. But do you see how there's a pattern of him writing dumbass female characters?
Yeah.
Who the fuck is like, oh, he threatened to kill me and sang the song of Kill the Pig from Lord of the Flies, but he's like flying out my windowsills. Like, why would I let him in?
Right? Like, that's when you grab something and you throw it out the window.
That's when you call the cops. That's
well, first you throw it out the window to protect yourself before the cops can arrive. You throw something big out there.
That's insane. Like, that's insane. Like, what?
Why do you think so many people keep crystals?
Girl, you need a knife. You need a gun.
You gonna throw the knife at him?
I don't know. Like, you need... Girl, what in the fuck? Like, yeah... What is this man's perception of women?
Not great.
Not great. There's so many Lord of the Flies references. I hate them. It takes me out of the story. And it's so on the nose, where he literally says that it's exactly like Jack from Lord of the Flies. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, we got that. You don't have to say it. Like, stop. We understood that you did have AP English in high school. Like, I understand. I did too. Shut the fuck up. I like the story in general, other than the Lord of the Flies references. And I like that he leans into the character being truly evil and not just making things look like an accident. I do like that the main character understands that he is evil. And he's just doing this for fun. I do like that he has no, like, maybe I shouldn't. Like, he just goes for it. I do appreciate that. I hate how he writes female characters. This is a prime example of a man writing a woman. No woman would ever react the way that this character reacted. Ever. Like, that's actually insane. And it takes me out of the story again, because I'm like, who the fuck makes this decision? Like, yeah, people make dumb decisions in horror movies and whatever, but, like, this is actually dumb. Like, this is stupid. And it's just a man writing a woman and not understanding.
How old is she again?
20s, maybe? 20s, 30s?
Okay.
So, like, grown.
Yeah.
Not
even if you weren't grown, stranger danger.
Not a dumb comment.
Danger, danger.
Danger, danger, danger. You left because he threatened to kill you.
Yeah.
I was so waiting, because when he goes up to her window and he watches her, I was just waiting for her to see him and freak out, right? Just, like, absolutely freak out, call the cops, run downstairs, or, like, something, right? No.
But it seems like, you know, I don't know, she freaked out a little bit, but not enough.
No. She was like,
oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
That's it. So that's that story. It's disgusting. I know this is before the Me Too movement, but, like, Jesus Christ, like, women aren't that stupid.
Mm-mm.
I hate that you think we are. Like, what the actual ass? Don't read it. Anyway, the next book is called Last Breath. Literal title. It is about people's last breaths. It is a museum that is set up in an old funeral home, and it is a museum of jars full of people's last breaths. Quite literally.
Oh, it's like the teacher's little jars that they have, like, my students' tears or something in them.
But it's people's actual last breaths. He puts them on a respirator, and when they breathe their last breath, it sucks it out and put them in a jar. It's their literal last breaths.
Is he killing them?
No, they aren't. He's not killing them. They just die for whatever reason. And he was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had this respirator in his bag that he made to, like, suck up the last breath. Because it's only the last breath that he cares about, not any of the others. It has to be the very last one.
That sounds very, what is it? Batman villain Scarecrow. Yeah. Where he, like, scares the crap out of him, and then it's not blood, it's something else that he takes out of them. It's a chemical that your body creates when you're scared.
Oh, yeah, the fear chemical.
Yeah. Like an adrenaline or something, too. Yeah.
It gives that. Now, I will say, I don't think he killed them, but he does give the proclivity of, like, people die around him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think he's setting traps for
maybe
people.
He works in a hospital or an old folks home.
No, he works at the museum, and then he was a doctor before. And I don't think he necessarily killed people. I just think people, like, death was drawn to him. Like, people died around him.
Yeah.
So the museum is set up in an old funeral home. The curator has put all the jars of people's last breaths on display and hooked them up to stethoscopes so that you can hear them for yourself. And a married couple come in with a little boy because they think it's a normal museum. And they're like, oh, it's not. And the father and the father and son are, like, still willing to give it a try. Mm-hmm. And the mom is like, this is weird. And also she doesn't believe it at all. She's like, you have this hooked up to, like, recordings. Like, this is a lie. Mm-hmm. The father and son like it. They each try, like, a jar or two. And it's basically, he does drop a few famous people references, including Edgar Allan Poe, which did irritate me, but it's whatever. They listen to a few of them. And basically the implication is, like, you don't hear anything, but if you listen closely, you do. And it's not just you hear a breath. It's like you feel a feeling of, like, despair or brutality or, like, something that gives indication of how that person died and how they felt when they died. So it's supposed to be, like, a very moving and intoxicating experience to listen. And so the father and son do it a couple times, and they're like, bro, this is so cool, try it. Like, trying to convince the wife to do it. And she finally agrees to try a random jar. And she picks one at random, and the curator goes, I would not start with that, personally. Like, I really don't think you should listen to that one first. I think you should work your way up. Because he said that some deaths are more, like, brutal for you to listen to than others. She ignores them, because she thinks it's fake. And whatever she heard, it's not described, but whatever she heard made her rush to leave. It made her, like, very dazed, and then she was like, we gotta go. This is in and out. We're leaving right now. And so she's trying to leave, and the boy and the husband are protesting, and she's like, fine, I'll leave without you. I don't fucking care. We're going. And so she walks out, leaves her husband and son inside the building. They just watch her walk out, and they're like, what is happening? And she leaves the door open too, so they can watch her as she walks out. And she walks straight into a road, gets hit by a car, and dies.
What?
Yep. The husband freaks out. He like runs over to her because he's like, oh my god, my wife got hit by a car. The boy, cool as a cucumber, sees the doctor's medical bag, because he was a doctor before he became the museum curator, and he still had his doctor bag with his ventilator, like respirator, whatever in it. Picks it up, hands it to the curator, and goes, I think you might need this.
What?
Yep. The boy's like, so the understanding is that he's gonna go suck up the last breath of this lady. And this is and then the story ends. But this is what I mean by death happens around him. But he didn't make her, but he also didn't stop it. But he didn't make it. So, like, death happens around him, and he just rolls with it, you know? He's the vibe. So, short and sweet. Something happens. I liked it. I'm glad it implied that someone actually dies and that they were added to the museum. I'm glad it wasn't just, ooh, come see the spooky museum. It was actually like, nah, you came to visit, but now you're not leaving. I like it. So that one, I liked it. It was cool. Did enjoy. The next one is called Deadwood. It is the front and back of a page. It is the front and back of a page. Which, not to say a good story can't be that short, but let me tell you, this isn't a story. Mm-hmm. It's not.
I was about to say, where is it?
There's not a story.
It doesn't even have, like,
the top.
It doesn't even have, like, the name of the story up there.
Yeah, I know. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. So let me tell you. It's called Deadwood. It's a literal title. It's about dead trees. It's not horror at all. The plot, which nothing happens, but this is what he's writing about. It just talks about the idea of trees haunting the space that a building is put on because there used to be trees there. So, like, whatever tree you cut down to build your house, the tree now haunts that house. Not as, like, a moving entity or, like, a physical, like, spirit, more as, like, you always hear wind rushing inside the house, or you always hear, like, tapping of branches against windows, but there's no tree outside. It's like that sort of thing. So it just talks about the idea of that. And then there's a weird switch at the end from third person omniscient to second person for no reason, which I hate. It goes from talking omnisciently about the idea to someone writing a letter about this thing happening. It's really weird. And the letter says that apparently someone cut down an old tree and the reader used to sit under it, and sometimes he'll hear the wind blowing through it like a ghost is still there. And that's the whole thing.
Just that. It's not even a full... No, it's one whole page.
It's one whole page, basically.
If you put them both together, it's pretty much one page and then 3 lines on the other.
So here's the tea. I like the concept. Trees haunting the land they used to own and live on. I like the concept. I think it's a cool concept. The random narrative shift is really fucking weird.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's literally no plot, really fucking weird. Like, make a story. Like, it's a really cool concept. Make something out of it. Like, don't just write down. This seems like it's your notes for a story. Like, I don't understand how this got published.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and like this is the second fucking perspective shift. Like, you learn in grade school not to shift perspective. Especially not in a way that makes no damn sense. Like, write an omniscient. Or don't.
I mean, if you had, like, a different type of book or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
It might be different, but the way it's set up, you don't really need it.
Here, it's giving you don't know how to write.
Yeah.
It's giving you don't know what you're doing. That's what it's giving. It's giving you are in grade school, you don't understand that you have to put third person omniscient the whole time. You can't just switch to you suddenly. It's giving you forgot how to write. And I hate it. I don't know how this made the cut for the book. I don't know how it got published. I don't know how it got past an editor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a story. This is a note for a story. Trash. Cool idea. You did nothing with it. You literally gave us your notes. I don't give a fuck about your notes. Anyway. Next one is called The Widow's Breakfast. Another literal title. A man has breakfast with a widow. Weird sexual shit? No reason. This is the only time it is about a man. Only time. Every other weird sexual shit is a woman. This one is not. Doesn't make it better, though, because it's still weird. So, this is about a bum riding train cars during the time when that was a thing. And his friend is killed after someone hit his friend in the back of the head because he found them sleeping on his property. He yelled at them to leave. They weren't going quickly enough for the man to be satisfied, and so the man knocks his friend in the back of the head. He didn't die immediately, but he slowly basically lost brain function and then died a few days later.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that as the dude's backstory. That's why he's on his own now. He gets in a train car. Another boy jumps on the train car at the same time. They don't really interact. They fall asleep. Man wakes up to the boy trying to take off his trousers, like the man's pants. And the boy offers to blow the dude for a quarter. And the dude declines. That is
worth more than a quarter.
That has nothing to do with anything. Why was that included? Nothing to do with anything. So anyway, that happens. Then the dude falls asleep again, wakes up again, boy's gone. That's just what I mean by nothing becomes of that. Like, there's no point. Dude jumps off a train at one of the stops, or like right before one of the stops, and so walks through the woods, finds this random house. It's occupied by a widow and her 2 young daughters. He sees the 2 girls kneeling in a flower bed outside, doesn't really give them much mind, and then he knocks on the door, sees that it's a woman, a widow, and he asked her if she had any breakfast to spare. And she told him to come in, I'll make you a full breakfast. Like, don't worry about it. She made him a full breakfast. They had a lovely conversation. Turns out her husband had died recently. She offered him her husband's clothes. He tried to say, no, that's too much. And she was like, what am I going to do with them? I don't have a man here. And so he takes them. He's very nice. He's very considerate. He leaves after he's eaten. And he looks outside, and the girls are still kneeling in the flower bed. And this time he walks a little closer because it looks like they're looking at something. So he walks a little closer, and he sees that there's a 3rd daughter laying on the ground, pretending to be dead. And the girls see him, and they ask him if he wants to play. And he declines, And then the girls insist again, and they say, but you're already dressed the part. Because he's wearing the clothes of their dead father. And then the book ends. So the whole story is to get to that last line. Because he's wearing the clothes of their dead father.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck off.
What the fuck?
Fuck off. That's so annoying. You wrote a whole story just to put one line in?
Yeah.
Stop. Fuck off. There's so much exposition just to get to the last line. Stop. That's the most, like, dad joke bullshit. Like, stop. And then his friend dying is completely pointless, too. You thought that would have something to do with it? Absolutely not. Friend dying had nothing to do with anything. And honestly, it should be shorter. If you're just trying to get to a one-liner, cut out all the extra exposition.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need it.
I was like, that's kind of long for just that.
That's so long for just that to happen, and you are correct. So if it was shorter, I would say it was good. But I also hate that it was so much. It was just to get to one line. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Story 13. Bobby Conroy comes back from the dead. Let me tell you, this title sucks. It's too wordy. But also, Bobby Conroy is not dead and does not die and does not come back from the dead. So what is this title? Trash. That's what the title is. It's misleading and it irks the fuck out of me. Not just because it's misleading, but just because, like, don't call it He Comes Back from the Dead if he literally does it. You want to know why he called it this?
Why?
Because they play zombies in a movie.
No.
Because they're dressed up as zombies in zombie makeup the entire story because they're on a movie set. Yep, that's what it's for. Weird sexual bit in this one. Here's the plot. A guy meets his old high school best friend/girlfriend on the set of a zombie movie because they're both aspiring actors. They're both extras on the set. They don't have speaking roles or anything, and they're just done up in zombie makeup. They're just part of the horde, basically. She has a young son, like I'd say like 10-ish or so, and she brought him to participate too because I guess he thinks acting's fun or, you know, whatever. Maybe he just wanted the makeup. And the son quickly points out that he is missing 2 fingers on one hand, and that helps make the look of his zombie makeup real, because he really is missing 2 fingers. And apparently he lost his 2 fingers. He was not born without them. He lost them in a freak table saw accident when he was 2. Apparently her husband is a, like, builder, like a carpenter, has a bunch of tools. Their 2-year-old was walking around, said dangerous tools. I have dealt with a table saw, and it scares the fuck out of me, and I'm grown. You have a toddler in your woodshed? Insane. And so he's in there. He somehow gets to a saw, okay? Turns it on, gets his little fingers cut off. Freak accident. You know what that was? Bad parenting. And she feels bad about it because she should. Because are you fucking insane? Are you fucking insane? You let a toddler go into a wood shop and walk freely. Not even just go in, walk freely. Are you insane? That's like grounds to get your kid taken. Like, that is insane. Anyway, that's how he lost his 2 fingers.
What the hell?
She's talking about the son with this dude. And as the son is, like, off playing with some other kids and stuff. And she's talking about him and about how bad she feels about him losing his fingers and, like, all this stuff. And then she makes a weird comment about all the great things she imagines her son doing someday, including having sex. Page 228. With a girl. Not her.
Oh, okay.
At least.
I was like, not...
At least.
Not
so
that
the
one.
quote is, I was planning how when he was 15 he'd make love to the most beautiful girl in school.
No.
What?
No.
You're planning for him to lose his virginity at 15?
At 15? I feel like that's something that he should be able to work out, you know?
You're planning for your son to lose his virginity. Like, I know you wanted him to do it to, like, a nice, like, pretty girl, so that's good for him, or, like, whatever, but, like, you're planning it? That's so fucking weird. They then have lunch break on the set, and her husband, the boy's father, comes to meet them, and she invites her ex to come and meet her husband, and as they all, like, eat together. Her husband is short, a literal lumberjack, he's not entertaining, and he's old. I don't know how old, but
41?
Older, probably. Like, older, but older than them, basically. I would say, like, at least a 10-year age gap.
Yeah.
The dude laughs super easily, and she said he's very patient. So the main character is now mad because he's not good enough for this girl, but this boring old man is, basically. Then you find out that the main character wanted to do comedy professionally, but stopped after he did a set before Robin Williams, before Robin Williams was famous. And for his set, everyone had barely laughed, but were cackling for Robin Williams. And Bobby is the main character's name, apparently didn't think that Robin Williams' set was funny at all, so he gave up on comedy.
I'm getting a feeling that Mr. Hill might have started a lot of projects growing up.
And then didn't pursue any of them?
Yes.
It got discouraged very easily. So first of all, you're name dropping Robin Williams, and then you have the audacity to claim that his comedy set wasn't funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a big doubt on that one. I'm gonna put a big doubt. So, fuck you on that one. Apparently that's why he gave up filming. I mean, not filming, comedy, stand-up comedy, and instead switched to trying to be an actor. Then they go back to the set, and they agree to do a close-up shot, or, like, volunteer to do a close-up shot of themselves getting shot, like, as zombies getting shot. And so they discuss the shot in, like, extreme detail, and, like, the main character goes through, like, he makes it very dramatic, him falling over and dying, and he, like, hits the column and, like, does the whole thing. And it ends with the director saying that the scene was really, really good, and he wants to do it again because it was so good. He was so, like, surprised by how well this guy, like, thought of how to die as a zombie, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So the implication is, like, maybe this is his chance to, like, hit it big. I don't know. So first of all, pretend just to say you didn't laugh at a Robin Williams set.
Mm-hmm.
Shut the fuck up. Nothing happens. The title is a lie. Maybe his comedy career is now re-inspired, but it's in such a weird, mundane way to write that happening.
Mm-hmm.
Heavily implies that the kid is actually the main characters, but it's never directly addressed, and you never know for sure, because it's heavily implied that the kid looks more like the main character and has personality characteristics of the main character, as opposed to of the lumberjack.
Mm-hmm.
Never explains why they actually broke up initially, other than distance. Would have loved more explanation on that. I hate the way he writes female characters, because he wrote the woman, the mother, as just so flighty. She, like, her emotions would change on a dime. First, she's upset about her kid losing his fingers. Then she's fine because they're having fun and they're in a zombie movie and they're acting. And then she's, like, nervous about him meeting her husband. And then she's upset because of how he's reacting to her husband, because he says her husband isn't good enough for her. And then she's back to being fine because her kid's having a good time. Like, it's so flighty. There is no one emotion, and that irks the fuck out of me. And he's just bad at writing women. He's terrible at writing women. And in the book, she specifically keeps jumping between laughing with the main character and then being described as looking solemn and haunted by her past. And then there's no payoff to any of her emotions, because nothing happens.
Yeah, other than
Everyone wants a divorce.
Do-over.
Oh, everyone wants a do-over. Yeah, what? Fuck off. Okay. And then also, I would like to point out that this is not the only time he writes about a mom sexualizing her son. We will discuss this in another book.
No. Ew.
Yep. Ew, I'm gonna run away. And by another book, I mean the next story. I said that weird. I mean the next story. So the next one is called... Alright. You already peed.
I know, I need to go again.
It's been an hour.
That water bottle?
It has been an hour. So, number 14, the next to last of the official ones, is called My Father's Mask. It's not horror, it's just really fucking weird. And there is a weird sexual bit, don't you worry about that. So, a family of a mom, a dad, and a 13-year-old son take a weekend trip to a cabin that is held in the family trust, basically. The parents make up a weird game to play in the car, and they say that there are playing card people, like Alice in Wonderland-esque playing card people, chasing them because they ran out of money and they are threatening and sabotaging them. Weirdly, Alice in Wonderland specific?
Yeah.
I don't know. The son would rather spend the weekend at his friend's house, who has a hot sister, and there is an unnecessarily sexual bit about her just in there, which I guess he's trying to say that, like, this is what teenage boys are thinking of, which is fair. I know they're just horny little, like, monsters, but was it necessary to the thing? No, because it's also written omnisciently. So do we need it? The mom says that the reason they're going to the cabin is to redecorate it because they're showing it to an appraiser. Sure. There's another weird bit about some people only being friends with him to see his mom and put them in her masturbation, in their masturbation fantasies.
Ew.
Why would you include that?
Why?
It's weird. Why would you include that when it has absolutely nothing to do with the story? Like, this story isn't about, like, teenage boys being just sex crazy. Like, the story is about a cabin in the woods and, like, the people who inhabit it. Like, I don't understand the weird sexual bit. So mom makes weird jokes about conceiving the son in the cabin. Why? The whole cabin is covered in handmade masks. It's like masquerade, and like some of them are even described as like full facial masks, but they're very decorative. The whole house is covered in them. Parents think it's completely normal. The boy's like, this is fucking weird. And then the parents encourage him to pick a mask and wear it. And he's like, actually, I'm good. I'm gonna go to bed. Good night. During the night, he has a nightmare, and he does wake up in his father's bed. Well, he like goes to sleep with his parents because he's scared. I think 13 is kind of a weird age to do that, but I don't know, maybe you're close with your parents at 13. Page 248. Okay, so he's talking about the fact that he woke up in his parents' bed and he went there in the middle of the night because he got scared of the cabin. And he said, I didn't remember rushing there in the dark and was glad. At 13, I was still a little kid, but I had my pride. What 13-year-old describes themselves as a little kid?
None.
What, like,
Written by
what?
13-year-old.
Written by not a child, clearly. Like, are you insane? What 13-year-old acts like this? Absolutely not. So, weird. When he wakes up, he turns over and he sees his father naked with a mask on. And it's one of them weird, creepy masks that's just like a clear face, just like full of like plastic clear with eye holes, right? The dad clearly didn't know he was still in the bed. Because the dad just turns around, sees him, and stops. Like a scared deer. Just like freezes, says nothing, doesn't move. Then the 13-year-old, which is why she just said ew, takes the time to describe his father's penis and pubic hair in detail.
This is why I said hi. Ew.
In detail, and says that this wasn't the first time he had seen his father naked. He describes it as he'd seen his father naked often enough. Before. What do you mean often enough? Like, do you mean in like a sports locker room shower way? Or what do you mean? What do you mean you've seen your dad's dick often enough? Because, like, have I seen my mom naked? Yes. Often? No. It would be like I'm 5 and I run into her bathroom while she's taking a bath.
Yes. Right?
Like, it's not like they're just out and about with the genitalia. Like, no. That's weird. Also, why are you describing it in explicit detail? Oh, it's so weird.
Written by
it's so weird. And that gave me a weird thing. Because I was like, do you have some dad issues that we need to discuss, sir? Because that's weird. So then he gets out of bed, walks around his weird naked father, goes into the kitchen. His mom is also wearing a mask. And then she's also described as wearing a large t-shirt and strappy black panties. Because she reaches up into a cabinet and the t-shirt pulls up enough that he can see that the only thing she's wearing underneath it is strappy black panties. Weird. The mom then goes on to say that this is called the masquerade house and it's a rule that everyone in the house must wear a mask. Or the playing card people will catch them. Mother had a weird discussion with him about what girl he likes and how she thinks when he gets older he can cold cock, quotation marks, his friend and take his friend's girl and they can romantically bond over the grief of his friend dying.
What? Where?
Page 251. So the mom knows that there's a sister, there's his friend's sister and his friend's sister's friend. And they hang out at the house all the time. And she knows that this guy isn't actually friends with the brother. He's going just to see the hot girls, but she has it flipped as to which girl he likes, okay?
What the fuck is happening? I don't even know where this is going.
New camera angle, my storage on my phone got full, so now we're filming on my iPad and I'm reading my notes on my phone. I also got hot, so I changed.
Oh yeah, your sweater's gone.
I got hot. There is a fan in here, but I can't turn it on if I'm trying to like record stuff, you know. So the mom is trying to talk to him about what girl he likes, because she's asking him about Jane. He doesn't like Jane. He likes Melinda for whatever reason. And then his mom says, there must be some reason you hang around with Luke besides Luke. Then she said, Jane came by selling magazine subscriptions to benefit her church a few days ago. See, she seems like a very wholesome young thing, very community-minded. I wish I thought she had a sense of humor. When you're a little older, you should cold cock Luke and drop him in the old quarry. Then Melinda will fall right into your arms. The two of you can mourn for him together. Grief can be very romantic. Then she got up, got a plate, and said, find a mask, play along. So she told him to murder his friend to take his friend's girl by bonding over grief. Okay? So there's that one. Do with that what you will. Then his parents immediately go into the bedroom to fuck. Immediately. She gets up, she says, put on a mask, play along, and then walks her ass into the bedroom to fuck. And so he's like, I guess I'll leave. She tells him to go out into the woods to get firewood for the fire. And he asked why she can't do it, and she said, grown people can't see the trail anymore. Apparently only children can see the trail in the woods. So that's why he has to go do it. So he walks outside, he walks around the side of the cabin on the trail, and apparently that goes, like, faces into his parents' bedroom, and he sees his father looking out. And his dad seems like he's trapped in the cabin. They have a weird conversation, and then his like mother like summons the dad to her. It's very much given dad trapped in the cabin. But what are you gonna do? You're 13. Anyway, so he keeps walking. And turns out the son had dreamed of a kid on his bike last night, dressed as Cupid. Whatever reason. Then, sure enough, he's going down the trail, and a kid on a bike dressed as Cupid like shoots past him, but doesn't acknowledge him at all. So the guy keeps walking, meets two kids. They are wearing masks. He is not wearing a mask, remember. So the two kids wearing a mask are in this like little like play shelter thing, basically. And they say they will tell him how to get home, avoiding the Cupid boy if he wins their card game. They want him to play a card game with them. So basically the girl rigs the game so that he would win. Then she gives him the winning hand and tells him to keep it and says his name, which he never told them. So somehow she already knew his name and she wanted him to win. So then she says, ask your question, like, because basically she said they would tell him the answer to whatever he asked. So he asked how to get home. And they told him to follow the paths closest to the sign that says anywhere, because there's apparently a sign that says anywhere, and it will take him anywhere he wants to go, so make sure home is where he wants to go. Which I thought was interesting, because I assumed he wasn't going to go back to the cabin. But then he does end up back at the cabin. So I was like, what's the point of it going anywhere if you're not going to get lost and go somewhere else, But anyway, so he takes it, he gets home. He also asked her right before he left if they knew him, because they knew his name. And she said, no, we don't know you. So he goes back to the cabin and he walks in to the living room. And his dad is sitting barefoot and shirtless with operation lines drawn all over his body, like surgery operation lines. And son's confused. Mom comes up and says the appraiser is here. Like forces the kid to put a mask on. And the mom is also wearing a mask. The dad is not. And the mask that she forces into his hand and forces onto him is the dad's mask, the clear mask that he was wearing. The mom says the appraiser's here, forces him to put a mask on, and then leaves the room when the appraiser walks in. Turns out she's packing their shit. So the appraiser walks in. She's a middle-aged woman. She starts rubbing the father's neck and shoulders. Weird. The kid looks to the side, and there's mirrors that have been covered in the room. Like covered with like how you cover it with a sheet. And a sheet has fallen to the side. And he looks to the side and he can see his father's reflection. And then standing over his father isn't a middle-aged woman. It's a playing card woman. This is a playing card person. Right? Okay. Then the appraiser notices him, looks at him, and says, that's not your real face. Like, because he's wearing the mask. And says that he's hiding. And so then the mom comes out, she has their suitcases ready, and she ushers him out the door. And he, as he leaves, sees the appraiser making out with his father. He walks down the stairs. The Cupid boy from the bike earlier is just sitting outside, skinning a rabbit. The mom ushers him into the car and tells him to pretend he never knew his father. He immediately, he insists that that's insane, but then as they start driving away, he starts to immediately lose memories of his dad. And his mom's like, it's not like your father ever did anything anyway. Like, it's not like he never did anything interesting. Like, just forget him. And then it starts happening as they drive away. And then the mom says, after they drive a little ways, that it's safe for him to take off the mask. And he goes, no, I want to keep it on. This is my new face now. And the mom's like, okay. And then she also looks at him and she goes, she tells him that she knows that he won the card game with the two kids in the woods. Doesn't say how, but she knows he won. and that the girl put the winning hand in his pocket. And so she tells him that he needs to keep that hand with him forever because it will make good things happen to him. And then that's the end of the book. Doesn't it make so much sense? So, the dad was clearly brought there as a sacrifice. I hate that. I was right about him being trapped there by the mom. Seems like the mom had a debt to pay, and she specifically wanted to pay it with her husband and not her son, which is weird because it's talked about that the parents, the mother and father would go there as kids. They conceived the son in the house. So he should know the rules of the house. So how would he not know he's a sacrifice? It makes no sense. Also, why is it in the point of view of the son? I want to know what the fuck the mom's doing. I don't give a shit about kids in the woods. The father's about to get cut up. I want that perspective. I want to know what the mom's doing. I don't give a shit about the 13-year-old that doesn't know anything. Boring. Here's what I thought was going to happen. I thought the 13-year-old was the sacrifice. Because the mother and father were in on it. They were here together. They had been here so many times before. I thought he was the sacrifice. Because why else would he not know anything? But no, it was the dad. That makes no fucking sense. It makes no sense. It never explains why they even brought the son along in the first place. Because why was he there?
Yeah, why would you...
Why was he there? Why was he there? It makes no sense, and it's an awful perspective to tell the story from because you don't know anything that's happened, and you never know anything that's happening. I don't understand how the dad became the sacrifice. Makes no sense. The Cupid Kid's weird. The whole vibe is Alice in Wonderland because there's like a rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. The Cupid Kid didn't wear a mask. My theory is that the Cupid Kid is a playing card, and what they do is they skin people and wear the skin so that they don't get spotted. That's my idea. And that's why I think he was skinning a rabbit, because I think that was a metaphor for what's about to happen to the dad. I think they're about to take the dad's skin and wear it. And maybe that's why the other kids avoid him, because they know the truth. They know that he'll use their body. But what that doesn't explain is the mirror thing. If it's a magical mirror, that would be the only reason it would explain why you could see, why you don't see just human skin. Because if they're wearing human skin, why would the mirror thing work? So I want to know if the mirror is a portal.
That's what I'm thinking, because it's referenced in Alice in Wonderland. Like, mirrors being...
portals, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if the mirror is a portal, and the portal is to either reality, or either when you go into the threshold of the cabin, you're no longer in reality, and it's showing out. I'm wondering if that's why all the mirrors are covered, because they're portals. You can see either the truth or not the truth. I don't know what they consider their true form. I don't know. It's super confusing, and I hated it. That's my consensus. So the last story officially, but not actually the last story, is called Voluntary Committal. Is there a weird sexual bit? You know there was. You know there was. Was it about a girl? You know it was. Not horror. So this one is writing directly to the reader. I guess the best way to describe it is House of Leaves, which I have started reading recently, which is a story within a story, where someone is writing down the story that the book is about, as like this happened to them in the past, and they're writing it down now. Like Gatsby did that too. Mm-hmm. But it's like that. But this, I say specifically House of Leaves, and I've seen other people make that reference, because the actual story is about a place that's bigger on the inside and has rooms and size that's unexplainable on the outside, which is the plot of the House of Leaves. That and people disappearing in the house. Mm. Which is also the plot of this. People disappearing. Rewriting of a story. And I did look up House of Leaves. House of Leaves was originally published in 2000. So he could have read it. I'm not saying he did, but I'm saying he could have read it. It was published first. And again, I would really like to stop reading things that are just retellings of other things. Whatever. So I just wanted to address that. But okay, here's the plot. So you're writing directly to the reader, which I think is tired. It's been used so much. And it also gives this story is just so terrible. It's really gonna affect you when you read it. You're gonna end up like me. No, I'm not. But I'm not, though. But I'm not. You can cut the whole part out, and it doesn't change the story at all. That's why I don't like written story within a story. I hate it, because you can take out the whole story aspect. You can just take it out. It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, even in Gatsby, you could take out the fact that Nick is writing it, and it wouldn't change the story. Because the story is Gatsby.
Yeah, but I think there's a little bit of it where it's like, it shows how hard he's worked to get there, but also it emphasizes his perspective, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, like, I feel like stories like that could just be written, and it's said that they're in the perspective of the character. And just be like, okay, start from there. Like, I don't need you to be like, I'm sitting in my desk at the age of 80, writing this down. Like, it's giving The Hobbit, because didn't that happen in The Hobbit? It's giving The Hobbit. See, it's such a dumb thing.
It's giving Bill.
It's such a dumb thing, because
Giving boy Bilbo.
it has been done so many times. Like, I'm very tired of this trope. Okay. So, then...
I like it in those instances, though, for those two examples. I liked it.
See, it didn't bother me in those two examples. It's now bothering me now the more that I see it. Because I'm like,
reading, though?
This and House of Leaves.
Yeah, I haven't read anything.
This and House of Leaves.
I don't think I've read anything since high school that was written like that.
Well, I got 2 more now, so now I'm just like, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Okay. So... writing directly to the reader, very insistent that he has to write it down, but no one can read it and it won't help anyone if they do. So why are we writing it down then? See, this is what I mean. I hate this fucking trope. Why are we writing it down? This is awful. It must stay locked in my desk. Why are you writing it? I called it the I can't but I will trope. Because, yeah. So a guy's friend and his little brother go missing, and he believes that they are connected. Turns out he doesn't believe it. He knows for a fact they're connected. It starts out with him talking about his brother, compares his brother to a conch shell. What does that mean? Page 265.
Put your ear up to him.
You can hear the ocean.
That's the only,
If you hold my brother hard against your ear, you can hear his internal organs at work. So this is how he describes. So his brother has mental illness, and this is what he describes it as. He said the diagnosis was depression, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, acute depressive schizophrenia. That's very official.
But, how is that hearing the ocean?
I don't know. So I don't think that relates to the conch. I think that's what he's actually saying. So it was when the boy was 11, he got this diagnosis. Depression, OCD, and acute depressive schizophrenia. So he's also a schizophrenic. That seems so specific and weird to put in the book when all the other times you talked about mental illnesses, you haven't said what they were. So now I want to know, did he know someone with this? Does he have weird knowledge about specifically this disorder? And that's why he named it? Or did he just discover some things about this disorder and be like, ooh, I'm gonna sound smart if I put it in there? That's my question. Because, why name it this specifically when you've never named it before? It should always just been, an obscure something's wrong. That one's weird. There is a baseball reference again in this book. Yes. Shut the fuck up about baseball. If I wanted a sports book, I would buy one. He calls the brother Little League... No, the main character, sorry, is called Little League Godzilla because he likes knocking stuff down. That was just, a character trait for when he was younger, is his brother liked building things, the one that has schizophrenia, liked building things, and then it was, his duty to, go and bat that shit down.
But isn't that, what kids do, though?
That is what kids do, but apparently they called him Little League Godzilla. Why? Who the fuck cares? It doesn't matter. Okay, So the brother, this is important, the brother is very into building anything out of anything. He just likes making shit. And also when he makes that Little League Godzilla reference about knocking stuff down, he makes a reference to him being divorced and saying that he knocked down his marriage.
I don't like that.
That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Fucking stupid. The younger brother is obsessed with building structures in the basement. It starts with cups and eventually he works his way up to cardboard boxes. But he is never satisfied with what he builds out of cardboard boxes. When he's doing cups and smaller things, he is satisfied and he does finish. But when he moves to cardboard boxes, he never finishes a structure completely. He always ends up changing it and restarting. There is a sexual reference on page 272. Okay, so the sexual reference in 272 is that I've been spacing out in history over the course of the last week. There was a girl, something of a punk, who wore tattery denim skirts and lurid red fishnet stockings and who sat beside me. She would flap her legs open and shut in boredom, and I remember when I leaned forward, I could sometimes catch a flash of her surprisingly plain white panties from out of my peripheral vision.
Why?
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 Like, are you just trying to say that young boys are disgusting? Because, like, they are, but, like, what does that have to do with anything?
Are you taking from your own memories of your childhood?
That's what I'm also wondering. And he used that reference to make friends with this, like, bully who he basically connects with, makes laugh about this enough that the bully doesn't bully him, and they become friends. So this bully that he makes friends with is named Eddie. Eddie likes to drop stuff off of a bridge over a highway and watch it hit the cars. Great guy. And then they do this, he watches them do this a couple times, and then one time Eddie escalates it to dropping bricks off of an overpass. A brick hits the windshield of a car, and it causes a very bad car crash. The main character feels bad, obviously, but Eddie threatens him to keep him quiet because they were like, the main character's like, we need to go check on it. We need to go check on them. Like, what if they're hurt? Like, what happened? And Eddie's like, you're gonna get us caught and put in jail, so shut the fuck up. Right?
Ew.
I love that.
Before that, they threw a diaper down.
They did throw a diaper down.
I'd rather be hit with a brick.
I wouldn't. You can wash shit off. You can't wash a brick off.
Yeah, but I'd be less traumatized.
Jesus Christ.
If a brick makes more sense than a diaper to me, you know?
Yeah. So anyway, after this incident, they go back to the main character's house and they're discussing it. And the little brother overhears them discussing it. And Eddie sees that the little brother overheard and he threatens him to shut him up too. So the brother decides to help out his big brother by building a fortress out of cardboard boxes in the basement. And he says that he built it to get rid of Eddie. So once he's done with it, he invites the two boys to go downstairs and see the fortress. And they had already seen one before. Like, before he had done a sort of octopus thing, where it was, like, main head of an octopus and then, like, different boxes and tunnels made, like, the legs and stuff. And they had gone in and seen that one, but he wasn't done. And so he was like, it's going to be even cooler when I'm done. Like, I'll come get you when I'm done. So this was supposed to be him showing this new cool thing that he finished, but it was in fact a trap. And so the little brother goes to the main character and is like, don't go in. Just let Eddie go in, right? So they do that. They let Eddie go in. And they hear him wandering around. And then suddenly his voice, when he speaks in the tunnel, starts being thrown around the room as if he's really far over here and then really far over there. And it's just a basement and just cardboard boxes. So how is that happening? Then they stop hearing his voice. Then he stops answering entirely. Eddie is never seen again. He disappears. Eddie's never seen again. The main character steers clear of the brother after that. The brother completely dismantles the whole thing. The main character goes stomping on all the tunnels to try to find Eddie, but Eddie's gone. And the main character is freaked out because he's like, his brother is on some weird magic shit. Like, that's insane. He shouldn't be able to do that. That's crazy. They steer clear of each other after that. They grow up. The brother moves out and gets odd jobs, eventually has a mental break, and voluntarily commits himself. Now which is the name of the thing, voluntary committal. And the break that happens is that he's living on his own in an apartment and he's not heard from for a few days. And so the family goes to check on him, and he's gotten rid of all the furniture in his apartment and put curtains and like sheets up everywhere, like his own large scale tunnel system. And basically he had gotten trapped in there. And at least in his head, he had gotten trapped and he couldn't find his way back out. So they like found him like having a mental break in his apartment. So they sent him to a mental health facility to live. And well, they sent him there, but he voluntarily like went. It wasn't like against his will. He's there for a little while, but then his older brother gets a call that they can't find his younger brother. The dude disappeared at the mental institution. And he's like, how could you lose a patient? And apparently they were very nonchalant and said this happens sometimes. What kind of facility loses patients? But anyway, that's what they told him. So they give it a few weeks. His brother's never seen or heard from again. And so they asked the brother to come up to the institution to get the belongings of the disappeared brother. And so the main character goes up to the institution, gets his things, and he's walking around the facility, and they say, oh yeah, your brother would hang out in the basement. And so he goes down to the basement, and guess what? Buddy Boy's been building a fortress in the basement. And while he's down there, one of the workers is down there, and he's like, oh yeah, like, he figures out that this is the brother, and he's like, oh yeah, the kid was like so nice, kind of weird, but he really liked building things. And I was planning on bringing like my either kids or grandkids over because it looks like such a fun like kids tunnel like fortress set, you know? And the main character's like, don't you do that. Do not do that. Dismantle this. Get rid of it. And then basically the main character zooms back out to when he's writing the story. And then he puts the story in his desk drawer and says he could always commit himself and crawl into the fort thing if things got too bad. And that's the end of the story.
What?
So I said it's weirdly specific about what's wrong with the brother, which I still agree with.
Yeah.
Why are you being so specific in just this story about very specific mental disorders? Do you know a lot about them, or did you just hear about it and you want to sound smart? Like, I want to know about that. So take out the shit about the story physically being written down, because why? You literally lock it in your desk. That's so weird.
Like,
I will say the story did hold my interest. The sexual stuff was unnecessary though. And I did leave out one sexual thing in my description. There is a photo that a girl gives to Eddie. It's like a Polaroid of up the skirt shot, but you still can't see like vagina. It's still just her underwear, but it's an up the skirt shot. And like all the boys are of course staring at it because she's stupid to give a child an up the skirt shot and think he won't show all of his friends. And that was like another point of contention between the boys, but that was another like weirdly gross sexual thing that also had nothing to do with the story. Love that. So that was that story. So now let's get to, you thought this was the end of the book, but it's not. So I thought I was finished. I flipped the pages. I'm seeing, because I always check to see if there's an epilogue, right? Flipping through the pages to see there's an afterword. Flip through the afterword. Most of the time I don't care about afterwards, so that's why I was flipping through to see if there was anything there. Then I see a title header. How would you pronounce that? Scheherazade.
Scheherazade. Typewriter.
Or Scheherazade. I'll put the spelling here. Because I am far too white to be able to pronounce this, okay?
I'm fully hiding behind the book as
You're fine. So I'm too white to be able to pronounce that name, but we'll go with Scheherazade's Typewriter in a title font. So I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's a short story. inside of the afterword.
3 pages.
3 pages long, very short. Now, the story is hidden in the acknowledgement section of the book and not talked about anywhere else in the book. He also says right before he starts it that he thinks he is the first one to do this. I did Google it. I couldn't find another instance of this happening, but I will say every time in every kind of wording I tried to look up short story in an afterword, it would separate it to just what is in an afterword. So I don't know if he actually is the first. But if he is, why are you bragging like you did something?
He said I could be the first.
Yeah, he said he could be the first. But, so? The fuck? Like, why? Like, who
He
cares?
sounds like he got a standing ovation, so he has to
He
keep
really
that
does.
going.
He really does sound like he got a standing ovation. Like, he's so innovative. He did something no one's ever done before in writing. Shut the fuck up. No, you didn't. Like genuinely, even if you did, who cares? That's such a, like, stupid, tiny little thing. So, okay. This is not a horror story again. Plot. It is quite literally the story of him, as in Joe Hill, even the he doesn't name himself, but it's the story of him, Joe Hill, dying on his typewriter. And then continuing to ghost write stories on the typewriter. So a daughter, the dude's daughter, maintains the typewriter's paper. She keeps putting paper in it, keeps putting ink in it, maintains the typewriter because all she knows is that it keeps writing stories. As long as she puts paper in it, the paper goes through, it writes a story.
By itself?
By itself. It's a ghost typewriter, okay? So the daughter maintained the typewriter, continuing to put paper in it until eventually it did break, because it's a typewriter, it's going to break after use eventually, right? You got to go get it refurbished. So she does take it to get refurbished. The problem is when they take it and refurbish it and fix it, it no longer does the ghost typewriting. It just becomes a normal typewriter. So what she does is she takes the stories that it did type, she puts them together and has it published as a book in her father's name. This book. It's this book. Does it name it? No, but it's this book. It's Joe Hill writing this book.
What?
Shut up. You are so up your own ass. Shut up.
He probably thinks he's better than his dad.
Like, how big is your ego? Shut the fuck up. And then let's talk about the title. Let's talk about the title. Because I said, that's a weird fucking name, right? So I said, let me look up this title. Scheherazade, right? Scheherazade. Scheherazade's Typewriter.
Did you Google it?
I did. I'm about to tell you what it means.
Oh, okay.
I looked it up. Don't you worry. I already did this research for you.
Thanks.
So I looked up Scheherazade. What the fuck is that? Because I had never heard of it. Scheherazade is the wife from 1001 Arabian Nights.
Oh, I knew it looked a little familiar.
The wife specifically that survives the night by telling the Sultan a continuous story. The ego to compare yourself and your writing to 1001 Arabian Nights, especially when this is your first published book. Get off your own dick.
Stephen King still married to his mother?
I think so.
Oh, she
I don't
hyped
entirely
him
know.
up.
They had to hype his ass
No,
up.
she hyped him up because he probably felt so insecure about it he refused to talk to his dad about it. So guess what? His mom stepped in. That's what happens when people's parents care
Girl.
about them. She probably
Girl.
hyped him up.
The comparison, when I discovered that, I got so angry. I cannot believe you would have the audacity to publish that. That is such an ego trip. I can't believe a woman stands your presence. So let's look at overall.
But no, what if it's about like how the ghost keeps on writing it because he knows once he's stopped won't have purpose anymore.
And then it becomes this book?
Nah, I'm taking apart that part. Just
I
to
can't
feel
do
better.
that. I can't do that. When it was a ghost typewriter writing continuous stories, and it's like multiple stories, I was like, are you serious? Are you serious? This is you? So overall, the book as a whole, collection, 2 stars. I hate Joe Hill as a person. I liked him years ago when I read Horns. Now it makes me want to reread Horns because now I need to know if I was just a teenager and excited about the devil.
Wait, slow down.
Horns. I can put up a picture of horns
This is better.
in editing.
This is better.
Like, I want to reread it with adult eyes because I want to know if there was a bunch of, like, misogynistic and egotistical bullshit that I missed. Because now I feel like there was.
Yes.
Because I will say that in the plot of Horns, the whole plot is that a girl gets brutally raped and murdered. And then her boyfriend is very sad, asks God for help. God doesn't answer. Asks the devil for help. The devil does answer. And the devil gives him his magic, his magical ability, which is people in his presence tell him their worst secrets. And so basically the whole book is him going around this town talking to everyone and them just being forced to tell him their deepest, darkest desires and secrets. And as the more evil he hears from these people, like, horns start going out of his head, which is why the title of the book is Horns. And eventually, at the end, he does find the guy who did it, and he kills him. And he gets revenge. And he sees the girl again. Like, basically, it's a book advocating for the devil against God. And it's a very good argument.
It's a dope concept.
It's such a good concept, but now I'm like, she was, like, brutally raped. And murdered. And, like, he did avenge her. And he did love her. But, like, now I want to go see how he wrote women in that book.